Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the next Ask Dr. Kurt podcast episode. Today, we did a poll. We didn't do a poll today, but we did a poll in, I think, the past week or so. What do people really want to learn about? Was it sleep? Was it something else? Was it hormones? Fat loss in real life was our number one, by far, the most votes. And that's what we're going to talk about today. The strategies that work, what we need to do in blood work, blood-wise, activity-wise, lifestyle-wise. How do we get there? And what do we do when we are there to kind of help maintain it all the way through? And I will kind of point out a disclaimer. There's no quick fixes for this. I always tell people we do things the hard way and the right way because that's the sustainable way. I'm sure, right now fat loss is big. I need to reframe that. Weight loss is big because a lot of the peptides and things out there are not necessarily losing fat. There is some fat loss in there, but what we're seeing in terms of the numbers of it is there's other mass, good mass being lost as well, and that's supported with evidence out there as well. So it's one of these things where we want to do it sustainably with your health improving. Or another one of those catchy new markers that's somewhat hard to quantify a little bit, but it is cellular age. Basically, the healthier you are, the younger your cells are. But that's a catchy one. VO2 max is a nice one too. And I like these for the main reason of the higher these numbers, or higher the VO2 max, the lower your cellular age, the better your health is. So either way, we're getting to a healthier set point. I like to use other markers, and we'll discuss them. But that is going to be along the way of how do we lose fat in real life and maintain it. So one thing we do need to touch on is in your 20s, which it's really easy to change your body comp. No other time in your life is it going to be as easy to put on muscle, lose fat, cut calories, and get ripped and do all these other things that Instagram and social media is trying to promote well into your 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s as strategies that work. When you're young and in your 20s, your sex hormones are through the roof. Your cortisol is, even if you're a little stressed, it's not chronic. It's not decades of chronic stress at that point. You're feeling good. Life is easier. A lot of people get married in their late 20s, or, people watching this, maybe your mid 20s, early 20s. The weight and the body comp on your wedding day when you're in your 20s may not be a realistic set point anymore now in your 40s, 50s, or 60s. So some of this is we're going to talk about how do we get to a new set point. But just remember, your 20s are setting the tone for adulthood. So I stress anyone who's in their 20s watching this, get into the best shape of your life, lift as much weight, get as strong as possible, do that now, and think of that as your dial, your set point for the rest of your adult life. We want to get high hormone function, high muscle, get the bones strong, everything. Do that in your 20s before life comes. Life comes hard, and sometimes it doesn't. It's hard to get back into shape once things have gotten, off the rails, so to speak. So, calories in, calories out doesn't work past your 20s, really. We do have to adjust calories in and calories out a little bit, but it's not what you see in research or these diet experts or whatever talking about. That's all we got to do. That's a lie. Flat out lie. They know it's a lie. Everyone watching it with any sense knows it's a lie. I would say rarely do I have a fat loss client that is overeating excessive calories. Hardly ever. So it's one of those. We do have a few high calorie excess eaters that gain weight, but that I would say in the terms of fat gain or fat to lose, that's on the rare side. But what I do see is a ton of people under eating calories by 5 to 1,500 calories a day and gaining weight or having excessive fat. While calories in, calories out would tell us, oh, perfect. You should be as skinny as possible. I mean, everything should be perfect. That's not the case. So we're going to touch on why, but we just need to dispel the myth. Calories play a role. Every decade you get older, it's a minor role, and it becomes more minor as we move throughout life. So, hormones, really probably the biggest reason people are having problems losing weight or problems gaining weight as well, or easily gaining weight without knowing why. And there's three main hormone systems that kind of play a big role in this. Sex hormones, of course. If you have bad sex hormones, how are we going to put on muscle? How are we going to heal? How are we going to repair? So that plays a big role, more so in the exercise component of things than the day-to-days. Next, we have cortisol. Cortisol is by far the number one issue when it comes to weight loss, fat loss, gaining fat, all of these different things. We're going to deep dive that a little bit in here. And then the last one is thyroid hormone, your metabolism hormone, which kind of relates to the cortisol a bit as well. And in big fat loss cases, it plays the biggest role once the fat is off the body as well. So cortisol, we have a saying, if any of you have been to my office, stress eats muscle. And what does that really mean? Well, stress requires sugar for its primary energy source. So when you get stressed, even acute stress, which will a lot of times develop into long-term stress, chronic stress, requires sugar for burning. So what happens is your body gets really good at burning sugar. Almost all the time, 100% of the time, it's just burning sugar all day long, every day. Well, the body also burns fat, and fat is the preferred energy source, but only when it's available to use and when the body's in a calm state to use it. So many times in a stressful state, there may be fat to be used for energy, but it's not being used. Your body is storing every ounce of fat it can because the stressor is there, and we don't know how long the stressor is going to be there. So it turns into this loop of the acute stressor now starts becoming a long-term stressor, maybe not in our brain, but in our body. Our body starts saying, oh, we are stressed, we need sugar. So we're either going to eat the sugar or we're going to burn muscle and save our fat for when the stressor is over to burn. So that's where we start getting into this precarious situation of under-eating calories. We're burning those calories. We're converting that food in our body into sugar, and we're storing fat. So even in a calorie deficit, a lot of times we're storing fat or minimally just losing zero fat all the time. So stress ends up being a huge thing. And how do we figure out stress? Well, first we need to run through body composition and kind of see where are we holding the most fat. So on a macro scale, this would be belly fat. On a micro scale, it would be belly fat. And we quantify it. And then we need to see where on the stress cycle are you? Are you in an acute stress state? Well, probably not if you're presenting for fat loss, because acute stress, you're not going to be gaining too much fat. It's not a chronic time. Chronic, 3 months, 6 months, 6 years, 20 years. Now we need to see, do the actual adrenal glands, the glands that make stress hormones, work? Are they burned out? Are they functioning properly? Because what will happen with stress is we have two main, I'm going to simplifying this down so we can understand it quick in this video. We have two main stress hormones. We have cortisol, which I consider good cortisol, and we have adrenaline, which keeps you alive in a crisis. So what we see over time is cortisol starts to drop. And when we run your labs, we see cortisol's low. Most people are like, oh my gosh, thank God, my stress is low. Well, no. Your cortisol is low. Your good cortisol, which manages your body, your immune system, the way your body's working, is low. Not a good thing. I equate cortisol to more like your financial planner. Your planner is now not planning very well. And we have adrenaline. Your body starts filling in this gap, this needed stress gap, because we need a certain amount of stress to live. Stress is our primary hormone. And our body's going to do everything it can to maintain stress levels. We just have to think, now we have two different stress hormones that are using to fill in the gap. We have good cortisol, which we want in the right levels. And then a lot of times we have adrenaline, which will fill in that gap. So when we see low cortisol, we we assume high adrenaline. And usually when we look at someone's life and what they're trying to do and how their body's presenting, that makes a lot of sense. They're living on adrenaline. And you know what adrenaline does not care about is tomorrow. Adrenaline is now. So think, if your primary stress hormone, which manages your day, which regulates your life, is adrenaline, which doesn't care about tomorrow, it doesn't matter if you're burning sugar all day and storing fat. And that's kind of the story of how we begin to gain fat, even in a calorie deficit, is that adrenaline is strong. So we need to, first off, figure out what's going on with the stress organ, the adrenals, blood tests and things, and then we need to start developing a plan around it. So cortisol ends up being clinical pretty quickly. And over time, the mitochondria start to burn out. So that's kind of where this phase starts to go, is not only does it turn into a hormone problem, now it turns into an energy problem where our cells can't make enough energy. They start burning out. And that's where you'll also see that in blood, triglycerides start to go up, blood sugar goes up. First, we see insulin start to go. So we start seeing these blood markers far before your doctor will ever say, I think you have a problem here. They would say, oh, you're perfectly healthy. You know, what's a couple pounds? Maybe lose some weight. Maybe do one of these new drugs that we have that everyone seems to love, and we could cut out the noise and different things. So there's clinical applications potentially for that, but a lot of times we're covering up symptoms of problems without fixing anything. So now, we need to address stress, and this is unique to each person. Second part of this would be exercise. And exercise, as I mentioned before, that's where our sex hormones kind of play the most role. We need testosterone to build muscle. Women need a balance of estrogen and progesterone to kind of manage out the recovery and how their brain's working and everything. So sex hormones are, I would say, in the most part, not the hardest problem unless they're critically low. And then we need to address that. But they're more for recovery. So we're going to see that as we start working out. And everyone's on a different workout journey. I mean, when it comes to fat loss, we have people that work out 6 days a week that can't lose fat. And then we have people that haven't worked out in 10 years that need to begin. Generally speaking, in these stress cases, we have to factor in, or we have to work in zone 2 cardio. We have to retrain our exercise system. And we have to rebuild mitochondria, which zone 2 does. And zone 2 also is fat burning. So we retrain the fat burning system. So it's a de-stressing form of exercise, albeit sometimes boring. But we have to retrain that. So exercise, a lot of times we have to retrain cardio, which is going to be good for your heart, which is probably being impacted by the excess fat and that chronic high stress. So it's one of those things where we do have to work that in. And we'll go from there. Thyroid comes in, where if thyroid's a primary issue, which we can assess and address if that's a primary issue, then we need to fix it. And that's something that we have a whole thyroid series touching on that. In terms of fat loss, thyroid comes in when we've lost the weight. Now we need to make sure our thyroid gland is reset, because thyroid responds to calories. It's your energy system. So once we take the adrenaline away and help your body now live on good cortisol, the energy now is not coming from adrenaline. It's going to start coming from your thyroid hormone, which is why we have to activate it and make sure it's working and boost it and use our lifestyle habits to really balance out our new set point. Because that's really what we're creating by losing fat, is a totally new set point. So a few things on diet we need to address in terms of fat loss. Calorie restriction is 10 to 15%. How many of you are doing correct calorie restriction? My guess is most people grossly overdo calorie restriction. We're talking 30, 40, 50% of calories is what most people do. That's a stressor. That's your body reading calorie restriction as starvation. It's flipping the adrenaline on, and it tends to not work out. So a lot of times this excessive calorie restriction is leading to the chronic stress that we talked about in the first part of this podcast, of just keeping you in that stress loop. So I always got to say, most people, we need to reset their calories. Most people are already under eating, and then they cut more, and then they cut more. And then it turns into a whole metabolism, because also remember, The thyroid gland responds to calories. If you're under eating calories, where does the thyroid hormone go? Down, 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 down. Where does adrenaline go? Up, 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 up. So we're seeing these things, and so it's a complete reset. So calories, diet is easy, and calories are easy. No more than 10% of your metabolic rate, which then a lot of times we have to reset the metabolic rate as well. So that turns into a kind of a customized approach. All right. So the last part of this, which ends up being kind of a big part in the whole scheme of things, is detox. And this, in a lot of cases, ends up being the biggest part for most people, because the hormones, I would say, yes, they're tough and require lifestyle change. If someone wants to do it, they're going to do it. If someone doesn't want to change their lifestyle, there's no amount of hormones or supplements and things that are really going to change it. So the hormone piece is, yeah, we have to change our life. Otherwise, our hormones are going to be the same because our life is the same. Hormones are a reflection of your lifestyle. Detox, liver detoxification, or getting rid of toxins, huge part of fat loss, and usually plays a big role as you get leaner, getting you to that perfect, lean body that you're looking for, the perfect amount of fat for your body, usually requires a fair amount of detox. And sometimes detox programs are the only way to kind of get rid of that last little bit of fat. And that's because toxins are fat soluble. Huge thing. I would say a lot of media and social media, they don't want to touch it because it is complicated. It's hard to detox. It's hard to put together plans. There can be bumps in the road. There's a lot of ups and downs. There can be reactions and things. How do you buffer it? That's why a lot of these supplement companies, they're not promoting big detox programs because they're hard and they don't want to be liable. They don't want to get sued. They don't want bad press. They just want to sell a product that barely works at a low dose and not have any problems. But detox plays a huge, huge role in a lot of people. And sometimes when we do our detox weeks is really the only time we start to drop significant weight. Then the body levels out, stays at that weight for a long time, and then we need to detox again. And we kind of use the detoxification process as a way to kind of reset the body to a new set point. And we have to start viewing this as toxins are stored in fat. So some of fat gain is just due to your body storing away toxins. It doesn't want that stuff in the bloodstream anymore. So let's store it away in fat and let's keep it there. So our body doesn't do well losing fat because we need to keep our fat at a certain level so our toxic load isn't very high. So this is a big thing, and we address this, and we go over it, and we have really cool detox plans at work. And they're a little tough. Anyone that's ever done one will tell you, yeah, probably wasn't the most fun, but after we finish, our detox week and then our subsequent clean eating and less intensive detox weeks, more lifestyle weeks post, no one ever regrets it. Because they learn a lot about how their body works, how it functions, how you feel, how good you can feel post-detox, how food can impact the body. So I would say detox is a huge, huge player when it comes to fat loss and keeping it off. And in some cases, it's one of the main ways or the only way to really lose fat after we get everything else corrected. So to kind of sum up everything we have here, when it comes to losing fat in real life, we have to assess it. We have to figure out what's going on with the body. We got to basically look at 3 different hormone systems, if not 4. Insulin sometimes plays a role in there, but we're going to figure that one out pretty quick. And we can almost put that in the stress category, but stress is huge. If we don't address stress, we're never going to get anywhere. So we have to figure out your stress. We have to figure out what's going on with the thyroid. Is that a primary or kind of a secondary issue in terms of fat loss? Sex hormones, are they going to inhibit our progress, or are they in a good spot where they're going to help us recover from exercise and kind of add that lifestyle piece? Do we need to detox? The answer is yes. The answer, the next question is when and how hard and for how long. Well, that's all dependent on the person. Sometimes we need to get the lifestyle on track. Sometimes we need to get the hormones a little bit more balanced, or at least a program kind of started to fix the stress organ, the adrenal gland, or other areas. And sometimes we just dive right in and say, let's detox first and start knocking this stuff out. So it really depends on your health scale. And that's where full customization is really, personalization is the key. And that's essentially what we do here at Bluestone. So if anyone has any questions, or this kind of resonates or connects with you and it sounds like something to really do, is we take a clinical approach. We're going to dive in. And a lot of times that's what people need nowadays. The lifestyle, simple approaches, the supplement, the dietary shift, or the massive calorie restriction isn't going to work. We just need to fix your life and get your body back on track. All right, until next time, we'll talk to you all later.